Today, as part of our topic, we're going to learn about wind, how it works, and what effect it has. So, our learning intentions, we're learning about the science of weather. We've already learned about rain and snow and the different ways in which we measure weather. By the end of this lesson, I hope you can explain what causes wind, that you can explain how meteorologists record wind, to be able to identify the reasons why we need wind and the problems it can cause, and to be able to explain why wind can move some objects more easily than others. So, how does it form? Well, you'll have watched the videos which will have put it into a bit more detail, but to summarise, wind is caused by an uneven heat across the Earth's surface from the sun. So because the Earth's surface is made up of different types of land and water, it absorbs the sun's heat at different rates. During the day, the air above the land heats up faster than the air over water. Warm air over land expands and rises, so heat rises, and heavier, cooler air rushes in to take its place, and that's what creates wind. So it's the warm air meeting the cold air, and it causes air pressure, and as that air pressure when it becomes high air pressure, it wants to become low air pressure, and that's what creates wind. So why do we need wind? Well, if we didn't have wind, and wherever there is a plant like in Grangemouth, all the fumes and the pollution would stay in that one area, which would be a huge health hazard for all of us living near Grangemouth. And because there's wind, the wind passes the fumes throughout the country and the earth, so that it's not all focused in on one place. Now, that's not to say these fumes are still okay, because they're not. We know that they're causing global warming, and we're now looking at renewable energy, which I'll briefly talk about as we go on. But if we didn't have the wind, then all of those pollutions would stay in the same area. Birds need the wind because they would be very tired if they didn't have the wind helping them fly. So they needed the wind to get from A to B. We need wind so that plants can grow, because the wind blows flowers, which then means that the seeds off the flowers can then fall and grow more flowers, and it's also part of the pollination process. We need wind so that we have different types of weather, because the wind blows the clouds across different parts of the world and different parts of the country. So if we didn't have the wind blowing the rain clouds across, we would have the same weather often, and that would affect the seasons, which would affect plant growth, it would affect animals, it would affect crops. So it's really, really important. And it would affect, if we didn't have wind, therefore it would affect our food production. It would make it a lot harder to produce food, because it contributes to all the factors that food need to grow, the climate. And we need wind for renewable energy. So you will recognise wind turbines. They are part of renewable energy, because when the wind is blowing, the turbines spin, and that means that it creates energy which can then be used. So when can wind cause problems? Well, it can cause problems if it gets too strong, because the stronger the winds, the more damage it can cause. Now, in this country, yes, we do have storms, and that can cause travel delay. It can sometimes cause damage to your garden, and sometimes car damage, but we've not had anything too extreme, such as a natural disaster. One natural disaster that can be caused from a storm advancing is a hurricane. So a hurricane can form in certain parts of the world when the air pressure gets to a certain level, and it's to do with warm air and cold air being at certain levels as well. And this causes a storm to basically whirl through a town or a city and cause a lot of damage, like you can see in the picture here. It can destroy homes, crops, and can affect life as well. In other parts of the world, you can also end up with a tornado, which is like a whirling storm that moves around. Again, you don't get them in this country, but in certain parts of the world you do, and they can again destroy everything in its path. So these are two natural disasters that form in a similar way to how wind forms, which we will learn more about, the science of more about, when we go back to school and start our natural disasters topic. So how do they measure and record wind? Well, they first of all want to record which direction the wind is coming from. So they can use the compass points of north, east, south and west. And they also use an anemometer, which basically these cups that you can see, the wind goes through the cups and it manages to measure what speed the wind is going at. So you will recognise this is a picture of a weather report, and the black circles, the little arrows coming out of them, that is about the wind. So if you see that on the weather report, the number is the speed of the wind, so miles per hour, and the arrow is showing which direction it's coming from. So it's not showing which direction it is going to, it's which direction it's coming from. So if you're not already aware of our compass points, we have north, east, south and west, and the best way to remember that is through the saying never eat shredded wheat. That's a mnemonic, never eat shredded wheat. I still sometimes have to do it, so that will really help you remember north, east, south, west. And if it's between north and east, then we call it northeast. If it's between south and east, we call it southeast. If it's between south and west, we call it southwest. And if it's between west and north, we call it northwest. So you might sometimes hear the weather reporter say there's easterly winds coming from such and such, the northwesterly wind. So that's them talking about which direction it's coming from. And as I said, the number is the speed of the wind. So if we look at this report here, we can see that Stornoway is very windy. And that is likely to be because it is obviously got way more sea surrounding it, so it's likely to be more windy because it's next to the coast. So I now want to do a fun experiment with you. So you will need yourself a few items from around the house. Just make sure they're different sizes and weights. In a moment I'm going to show you the items that I have chosen, but you don't have to do those exact ones. You can decide once I explain what we're doing. You will need a hairdryer, but that is optional, you don't have to have a hairdryer. You'll need a timer, which you could either have set on a phone or an iPad or a watch. And you may also need a measuring tape or possibly a ruler. If you don't have measuring tape or ruler, I will explain in the video what alternatives you could do. So what we're going to do is, for each item, we're going to predict what distance it's going to move, depending on whether we blow with our mouth or we blow with a hairdryer. because this gets us to think about how the wind affects everything outside. So you'll see that wind easily blows through trees, and that's a really good predictor of how fast the wind's going. But it's not gonna blow your car or blow your house. But if we think about natural disasters and how they manage to blow cars or blow houses, then that really will help you understand how fast that wind is. Now, there are obviously sometimes there's been quite bad storms even in Scotland, and they get these funny names. And you may have seen videos on YouTube before where a trampoline is getting spun across a garden because it's that windy. So this experiment will really make you think about how windy it is based on how much an item can move. So I'm going to show you the experiment, and I've made some predictions first of all, okay? So I think that it's going to, the pen is going to go 40 centimetres if I blow it with my mouth, 100 centimetres if I use a hairdryer. I don't think the bag is going to move at all. I think that it will be 12 centimetres with a hairdryer though, because it's a bit more powerful. The cloth, I think, is going to be 5 centimetres with a mouth, because obviously the power coming from your mouth is not as strong as a hairdryer, and I think the hairdryer will be about 60 centimetres. I don't think the book is going to move at all. And my tub, I don't think I'll manage to move it with my mouth, but I think it might move about 10 centimetres with a hairdryer. So before you start, you want to make your predictions, okay? Okay, so I have my measuring tape set up. I have got my items. I've chosen a bag, a cloth, a tub, a pen, and, well, my diary, a book, okay? And I'm going to basically just set the tape pretty much almost as far as I can go. And if you don't have tape, don't worry, you could just estimate how far it was, or you could get a big bit of paper and a ruler and draw out the measurements if that's easier. Now what I'm also going to do is on my phone I'm going to set a timer for 3 seconds. That's all we're going to do it for. So I'm just going to set that just now. So timer set for 3 seconds. And my first item is the pen, and I'm going to press my timer and I'm going to try and blow the pen and see how far it will go in 3 seconds. Okay, now I have predicted that it's not going to go very far. Let's have a look. Okay, so it has actually managed to go 21 centimetres. Okay, I'm now going to try and see how far I can blow the cloth in 3 seconds. Now, you need to make sure that you're starting at your start line if you're doing the measurement. Okay, so let's see how far I can blow it. Okay, that only managed to get to 10 centimetres, so not very far at all. The next one I'm going to do is the tub. Now I think this one's going to be harder, but we'll see. So let's have a go. Yeah, nothing moved at all there. Okay, I'm now gonna try the bag, which I'm think we know that it's not gonna move anywhere, but let's see. Yeah, definitely not moving anywhere. And the last one is the book, which again, don't think it's going to go anywhere, but let's have a look. Nope, definitely not going anywhere. So that was me trying the items with just my breath, which obviously would be classed as a very, very weak wind. But let's now see if the items can move further with a hairdryer, because that would be classed as a stronger wind. Okay, now I have put 5 seconds just so it gives me a bit of time to press start and do the hairdryer, but that's also because I'm trying to film at the same time. So just I've tried this a couple of times already. You need to try and make sure that you're blowing the hairdryer in this direction so that the pen doesn't go way across the room. Otherwise it'll be hard to measure how far it went. So let's have a go. Press start. Okay. It managed to go roughly almost 140 centimetres. So let's now try it with the cloth. Okay, it actually did not go as far as I thought it would. It got to about just over 30 centimetres. So once you've finished the experiment, you can then write your results for the distance that the items moved when you're blowing your mouth and the distance the items moved when you were using the hairdryer, if you're using one. And you can compare your hypotheses with the results. So you can see, for example, I really underestimated how strong a hairdryer was with a pen, and I also overestimated how much I could blow it. So this can make you think about the power of the wind and what the wind can move depending on how strong it is. So you can stop and think, why does a pen travel further with the air than a book? Well, yes, the obvious answer is that it's heavier. So gravity holds it down more. And therefore it's the same when we look at how the wind affects everything outside. The branches of the trees are much lighter than your car. So your branches of the trees are going to move, but your car is not. So I hope you managed to learn a wee bit about wind, how it forms, and how it's measured. You'll now understand what they are talking about when you're watching the weather report and you see the little wind symbol. And as for the experiment, it was just a little bit of fun, but it gets you to think about the power of the wind, and also a little practice on using hypotheses and results. So I hope that by the end of this lesson you're able to explain what causes wind, the fact that it's due to air pressure and the mixture of the hot and cold air. I hope that you're able to explain how meteorologists record wind, so they record the direction that it's coming from and the speed at which it's going. I hope you're able to identify the reasons why we need wind and the problems it can cause, and that you're able to explain why the wind can move some objects more easily than others after doing your experiment. I hope you enjoyed that. Next week is our last week on weather, so if you do have anything else you want to learn, please let me know.